Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Ask Rob and Rob, the show that just keeps rolling on. And there's a good reason for that. One, it's quite popular with the downloads, so it pleases us. But two, you keep asking us questions and we like to answer them. And this week is absolutely no different. We've got a couple of great questions in. But before we do, here's a quick reminder of how you can get your question answered too.
Yep, we make it nice and simple for you. The simplest way, probably, is to go to thepropertyhub.net/ask. Go there, talk into your laptop or your tablet, and you're done. Or if you'd rather do it the old school way, you can give us a call on 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. So ask us whatever you want. It always generates an interesting talking point. And today's first question gives us an opportunity to lay an old myth to bed. So let's hear that question from Ash.
Hi, Rob and Rob. This is Ash from Yorkshire. I've got a query I was hoping you can help me out with. It's about this whole flats versus houses debate. So where I'm currently sat is I don't quite understand why people seem to say that flats are you invest in sort of houses for capital growth and flats for yield. Is it true that you invest in houses for capital growth over flats? And if that is true, why is that the case? If it's not true, then why do people seem to think that's the case? If you can shed some light on that.
Okay, Ash, thank you for your question. We've talked about this a bit before, possibly a couple of times, but it's well worth coming back to this again because this idea just won't go away. People seem to have the idea that, like you said, it's flats for yield and it's houses for capital growth. And I've already spoiled this slightly by calling it a myth, but really it is. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know who puts this around. I don't know why it's so persistent, but the data shows that it's absolutely not the case. If anything, it's the opposite. The thing that you see with flats is as the property cycle progresses, they tend to grow first and grow fastest. That's probably partly because they're central, also because they appeal to first-time buyers and investors alike. But whatever the reason, the data clearly shows that they get the first growth and they get the fastest growth. They also tend to come down hard on the other side as well. So when there's a crash, flats often suffer a lot. But the point is, if capital growth is what you're after and you're into timing the cycle a little bit, then you're far more likely to get that capital growth with a flat than a house. So the complete opposite of what people normally think. When it comes to yield, I can't see any particular reason why there'd be any difference between the two. I'd say it's down to the particular flat and the particular house. And of course, with flats, you need to deduct the service charge and take all that into account. But by the time you're comparing like with like, I wouldn't expect there to be a real difference between the two classes. I'd expect it to be case by case. But Rob, it's the capital growth piece that seems to be the source of confusion here.
It is. And I think you raised a really interesting point, Rob, of how it overshoots near the top of the cycle. And then when the market corrects, flats are hit a bit harder. But that's what makes this really interesting because the people who say this obviously don't look at the data. But being geeks, we do. And when you look at the data, you'll see that after the crash, there's a real lack of appetite for apartments to be built. Developers aren't interested because everyone's been hurt and felt the pain. And then there's the lag of building. And then apartments just aren't being built. So then there's an undersupply of apartments. Now, city centres in the north have only just started to see apartments being built. In Leeds, for example, I can't really think of many, if any, new build apartments being built. There's some conversions of offices to resi, but I can't think of one big shiny new build in Leeds right now. Now, I might be wrong. There might be one. But the point is, that's a big city, and that's not a lot of apartments. So it overshoots the other way as well, which is why at this point, apartment prices will do very well, and the majority of the cycle, except the very end, apartments seem to do well. Houses are a little bit more steady. They're in more suburban areas. You don't get many houses in city centres. So I think it's really interesting when you look into the data. But the great thing is now, Ash, next time you hear somebody chirp that rubbish over and over again, because as Rob said, it seems to be out there, you can correct them because now you've got the detailed knowledge behind it. And it's all backed on data. We haven't got an opinion on this. It's just what it is. We don't really care if it's flats or it's houses. If it was houses, then we'd be super pro houses. If it was all the time flats, we'd be super pro flats. But we're both, because there's a place for both. So I hope that clears that up. And as Rob said, the yield, well, actually, I think maybe flats sometimes can give more yield, but actually houses can too. So I think actually the second part is also wrong too. Okay, so that should be you done, Ash. But you're a cheeky so-and-so, aren't you? You doubled up, and you got another question in, but because we're feeling generous, and it's a good question, we'll play it. Here it is.
Got sort of a second sneaky question I hope I can throw in here. If you were to invest in, say, Manchester, then in that case, so invest in a flat, for instance, in for £120,000, or if you could, say, invest in a sort of a house on the outskirts of Manchester, for instance, again for £120,000, on the basis that all the fundamentals are there, which one would you choose? I.e., would you choose a flat in the heart of Manchester for 120, or a house on the outskirts for 120, and why? Which one would you choose and why? Love your work, guys. Great big fan. Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.
Ash, interesting question, and actually, I've kind of started to answer it from your first question, and it's timing. It's all about the market. Because in central Manchester right now, things are doing very well. And capital growth is certainly on the rise. And certainly areas outside the centre as well, that's happening too. But in most areas of Manchester, not quite as much as the city centre. And what you'll often see, in many cities, Manchester's no exception, is that it'll go off in the centre first, the prime areas and other prime areas of Manchester, and then the ripple effect will take place and go out to other areas. So it depends on how brave you feel. It's very easy to invest in an area that's already seeing growth, and you can do that with Manchester. But if you're feeling a little bit braver, you can look to areas that you can see, oh, wait there, it hasn't gone yet, but all the fundamentals are here to suggest it will go. Let's invest there. Now, I know for the braver listener, option 2, all day long, especially when you listen to a podcast, you don't have to put down cash of your own. I can see, and I definitely understand the comfort people get from investing in an area that's started to move. I don't think it's past its best. I don't even think it's at the midway point yet. And a lot of people will question that too. But if you're a bit braver, you can invest just outside some of these prime areas and wait for the ripple effect. But if you want the comfort of growth here and now, you can go straight to the central parts. It's up to you.
Yeah, and just to cover that from a slightly different angle as well, I think it's worth bearing in mind the management side of things as well. So as a very general rule, very general, plenty of exceptions, it tends to be that you'll have more tenant turnover in city centre flats. And also in city centre flats, there'll be the expectation, usually, that it's furnished to some kind of degree. Might not be all of it, but you'll have kitchen appliances and so on. In a house, generally speaking again, you tend to get people who stay for longer and you can get away with less furnishing. Which of those is best? Neither. It really doesn't matter, but some people have a personal preference, especially if you're going to be self-managing. So that's not specific to Manchester, that goes for everywhere. But it's worth thinking about all of this in the round. There's the investment case, and then there's also the, well, what do you want out of it on a day-to-day basis as well? And that's why when people ask us, well, what would you do? We can say what we'd do, but that doesn't mean that it's what you should do at all, because everyone's different. You're going to have different objectives, different fears, different preferences, and all of those factor into your decision. So hopefully now you're aware of what all those factors are. We haven't given you an answer. We haven't given you a postcode to go and invest in, but that should give you enough, hopefully, to go make a decision for yourself and make it happen. Because ultimately, you can listen to people all you like, having all their opinions about various things, but until you actually go and make that investment, it doesn't count for a lot. So Ash, I hope that helps you go and do exactly that.
Okay, Ash, well, I hope you enjoyed your exclusive episode there. But to be fair, 2 great questions, so thank you. Appreciate you sending them in. Remember, if you want to get your questions in, we make it nice and simple. Go to thepropertyhub.net/ask and we will get round to answering your question in a not too distant future. But in a not too distant future, we have another podcast. In fact, it's on Thursday. It's called The Property Podcast. You're probably aware of it. But it's back. It's on Thursday, so make sure you listen to that. And of course, we'll be back next week with Ask Rob and Rob. So until then, everyone, take care. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.